Good evening. My name is Gregory Pleshaw, and tonight I am going to read to you a short story that has been recently published in a book called Guns, the Guns Anthology. It looks backwards to me. I hope it looks right way to you. The Guns Anthology was edited by Gerald Hausman, and it is a book of short stories and essays and poems about guns. The book has 20 contributors, and I do not know them all yet. N. Scott Momaday is in the book, as is my friend Trent Zelazny and myself. And Gerald Hausman has been publishing the work of writers for the last, 40 years or so. I recently read his book of poetry. He's been a poet for a very long time. He's written 100 books. You can read about him on Wikipedia. And I wrote an excellent bio about him once. But the book the piece that I'm going to read tonight is called Chasing the Storm. But I want you to see, this is the Guns Anthology. And of course, we love it when people buy our books. It is available on Amazon. The bit.ly address is amzn.to/2ji4yag. That's amzn.to/2ji4yag. And any minute now you'll be able to, download the PDF of this. There's a Kindle version, all that stuff. But the thing is that buying these books like this, there's 20 stories in it by some very Aram Saroyan's in this. I don't know him either, but he's a rather well-known writer. I don't know him personally. Buying books like these allows us to make more books. That's all. So that we can, us writers can write things and contribute to the discourse of culture. And now, more than ever, boy, that's just a really important thing. So this piece is called Chasing the Storm. And it was written last fall. Something like that. And it's around here somewhere. Here we go. I hope you enjoy it. This is Story Hour. In my house, on the beach, on the Andaman Sea, I sat naked at my dining table, in my open-air kitchen, listening to the sounds of the waves crashing against the shore and the violent patter of raindrops on my sturdy thatched bamboo roof. I'd been into the little town near Shalong Bay earlier in the day and stopped off at the local cafe. A small group of expats, mostly English and Australian, were seated around the counter, weary from the day's diving, talking about an incoming storm. I paid them little heed as I drank my coffee, then made my way to the 7-Eleven to stock up on beer and cigarettes before hopping on my motorbike for the ride home. The severity of the windstorm took me by surprise, but I felt safe within my little cove, which I dubbed Pirate Bay, owing in part to the fact that there was a U.S. destroyer floating at the mouth of the cove, moored near the Phuket U.S. Naval Base. And here, I was the pirate, hiding from everyone and yet in plain sight, live on the internet, courtesy of a T1 line that led directly into the Ethernet port of my Macintosh. From the laptop's tinny speakers, the desert dwellers gushed forth a rich, yogic-drenched electro-trance, and I was writing dense, interesting prose, dancing between dropping posts on Facebook and delivering odes of fascinating ideas and stories to an audience of hundreds, thanks to the CC function in Gmail. I had just cleared away the dinner plates, piled high with the shells of various clams, snails, and crabs that I'd purchased using my broken tie in the open-air market tucked far away from the eyes of your usual casual tourist to the island. And I was drinking an ice-cold beer and chain-smoking on a wondrous drunken tear of inspiration and ideas with no need for contemplation, editor, or publisher. This was live writing, an unprecedented phenomenon in the history of the world, and thanks to Mark Zuckerberg and my own hubris, I was a writer-performer, living large in Thailand and live on the World Wide Web. And despite whatever you might think, I was in demand 24 hours a day. My screen suddenly cleared as a Skype call pushed away my other windows. It was Chase. What a pleasant surprise. I clicked to receive the call, and he appeared on the screen. "Hey man," I said as the screen came into view, and then I stopped short. Chase was seated at his desk, shirtless in his West Oakland warehouse. In front of him lay a pack of cigarettes and what appeared to be a sleek 9mm handgun, which looked so shiny, even in the dim light of that dreary hole Chase was living in, that it might have been brand new. Chase glared into the screen, his eyes resigned, his hair disheveled, his face unshaven and pale. A cigarette dangled uncomfortably between two fingers as the smoke curled across my screen. "You don't smoke," I said finally. "I thought I'd take it up again," he said, pulling on it gently, coughing like a junior high school kid behind the gym, puffing on his first Winston on a dare. "You've never smoked," I said as my eyes darted around the screen, looking for more clues to this situation. "I used to smoke cloves at Burning Man and in goth clubs," he said sullenly. "Cloves are a whole other animal," I said. "They're sweet, and their smoke is delicate. Cigarettes are harsh and unforgiving." "Like life," he said sharply, then pulling again, this time more successfully, before smashing it out on the surface of the desk and picking up the gun instead. "I'd offer you a beer," I said, "but I feel as if there's some distance between us. About 6,000 miles, I'd suspect." 8,000, he said. "I checked it out earlier on Google, but who's counting?" "We don't need to anymore. We have machines to do all the counting." "And machines to do all the work," he said bitterly. "Last time I checked." He fingered the gun nervously, popping out the clip and popping it back inside. "New toy?" I asked, smiling, hoping to disarm him. He looked right at me, peevishly, then pointed the gun directly at my face. I felt a cold shiver down my spine, as if he could really shoot me across a Skype connection. And he clicked the trigger into an empty chamber, and I screamed. And he burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. "You're a dick," I said, reaching for another beer and lighting another cigarette. "Ha!" he said. "See there? Everyone's afraid to die. But not me, no siree. I don't want to live anymore. I can't anyway. I can't find a job. 45 days late on rent. Hey, takes at least 90 days to evict you in California," I said. He put the gun to his head and stared closely into the screen. "She left me," he said flatly. "Kristen, 10 years. You remember. You were there at the very beginning. We were young then, but by that point I thought I was set for life. Then I started drinking again and I lost a job. She left." I remembered Kristen. She wasn't my type, but she was a good-looking chick back then. A little uptight for my taste. I was too drunk most of the time to really notice anyone, save the bar floozies I was dragging back to our flat in the Western Addition after late-night drinking sessions at Molotov Cocktails on Haight Street. But I remembered him then, with his long hair but very businesslike, sort of preppy-looking clothes, and a motorcycle that he proudly drove every day to a .com down at South Park. We were all making money then, developing things that no one needed to use, writing stories that no one needed to read. That digital revolution just put us all in front of the screen a lot, looking out for signs of life, cruising for sentient beings. Yeah, we were all beautiful then, but here we were now. All of us alone in front of our screens, huddled around the village campfire called Facebook, still tapping our keyboards in search of deliverance from the human condition. Chase, clearly, hadn't found his. Isn't everyone poly in the Bay Area these days? I said. Maybe you can find a little something on the side. Oh yeah, I did. So did Kristen. And then she left me for him. She said he opened her eyes. Fantastic. Then mine started sleeping with some other guy too. Someone much cooler than me though, perhaps, because she hasn't called me lately either. So what's the plan? I said. He shrugged, then put the gun to his head again. Was there a round in the chamber? Perhaps the entire clip was empty. Then again, perhaps the rest of it was full. I'd never owned a gun and wouldn't know for certain. Didn't think I could Google quickly enough to figure it out, and it didn't matter. My eyes darted around Facebook. Was there anyone in the States who was close to Chase who could call him? Better still, someone in the Bay Area who might go over to his place in West Oakland and pound on the door? Outside, thunder roared suddenly and lightning cracked across the sky as Chase pointed the gun directly in the center of his forehead. Hey man, what the fuck? I said quietly. Sure, we knew each other a decade ago. We'd never lost touch thanks to the internet, but like everybody else in the digital age, we were all just ghosts to each other. Email addresses and online handles, profile pages and text messages. I hadn't actually seen Chase in years in the flesh. Not since Burning Man 2003, in fact, 7 years before. And that had been a blur of beer and LSD, nightclubs and fire dancing. Not exactly what you'd call quality time. It's too late, he said. I even wrote a will. I only called you because I figured you're the only one left who doesn't hate me. And because I figured you'd record the call and use it in one of your weird projects, me blowing my brains out live on the World Wide Web. A fitting death for another out-of-work sysadmin after the real estate crashed. Exactly the sort of gallows exploitation you get off on, you fucking sicko. Transference. Nice. He'd reached out to me for some reason, but clearly he wasn't ready to go yet. He had things to say, which bought me a little time, and yet perhaps not much time at all. I thought of my own suicide attempts and many more instances of ideation, crazy emails to friends in the dead of night, feeling like a cornered animal, frantic calls to suicide hotline, perhaps an extra dose of benzodiazepam or Zyprexa if I had some handy, and if all else failed, a ride to the emergency room and eventual admission to a psych ward. These were the routines of a man who was only terrified of life and didn't really want to die, someone who hadn't quite prepared for the grimmer aspects of actually dying forever. But this case was different, because this man had a gun. In suicide, preparation is everything. It's the first question they ask in an emergency room. Do you have a plan? Pills were usually mine, but most pills won't kill you unless you have a grip of really badass barbiturates or opiates, tossed down with a bunch of booze. But even that's kind of a crapshoot and more likely to just make you sick and give you a rotten hangover, or a stomach pumping if you get caught and taken to the hospital. I never had anything that cool on hand, because I wasn't serious. Needle drugs. That's a better bet. Like some high-end China White or maybe a speedball with coke and smack. But not every depressant has any handle on street dope, because most are getting all they need from their psychiatrist, and any real junkie is so obsessed with avoiding dope sickness that they don't have time to think about ending it all. Junkies have it made when it comes to staying alive. They got that way out of a serious hang-up about coping with any pain at all. Hanging is a great idea, but most people can't tie a noose, and if they can, they screw up on how it's attached to the ceiling. Knives are good, but it's all about where you cut yourself. If you slice across the wrist like in the movies, you're not serious. If you begin where the hand meets the wrist and cut upward, you'll probably be dead before 9/11 could reach your door, even if your best friend is sitting right next to you. But most people don't do it that way. Slitting your own throat is also a good call, but you have to make sure you hit the carotid artery, and preferably both of them. Most people chicken out after they hit the first one, if they manage to do that to begin with. In other words, most people aren't serious. Unless they have a gun. Then they're serious. It's hard to come back after a bullet to the brain. Most who pull that off end up a vegetable being spoon-fed whipped peas for the rest of their lives. In fact, the potential for that outcome is a deterrent for some people to even consider using a gun. Perhaps it goes without saying that those people aren't serious either. They say this one is the big one, 2008, the last crash to end all crashes, said Chase, popping the clip in and out nervously, and then waving the gun around as he talked. You've been out of the country for a while, but you knew, didn't you? I knew my life sucked, I said, but then I had a lot of issues in the U.S. It seemed like a good time to disappear. Yeah, well, we just thought 2001 was a big deal. But that was just our little world. This one, the middle class got their hearts cut out, poor fucks. All their dough tied up in houses with crap mortgages, and all the bankers laughing, floating on their golden parachutes to remote islands in the middle of the tropics. As he talked, my eyes scanned the screen. I popped Gmail into view and slid my cursor on the left side of the screen to see who was available for chat. My connections across the ether were green lit all the way down the aisle. Electronic proxies of people scattered around the globe currently available to talk. I didn't find it surprising that Jake Lizard was there among them. And though I had reasons to talk to Jake about all kinds of issues on a frequent basis, this particular problem was right up his alley. Jake Lizard was a man about town in a counterculture world that had little room for names or heroes. And yet he loomed large as a performer, showman, a man who lived from show to show, from Burning Man to San Francisco and back again. His background was punk rock royalty. He never made a dime, probably, but he probably went to some cool parties. He was known for wild art projects and impromptu spoken word, and some very surreal dance parties at his warehouse in the Mission. But Jake Lizard cut his teeth in the 1980s as a member of the Suicide Junkies, a performance punk rock ensemble that assembled a loyal following with songs like "Kill Yourself, You Loser," "The World Sucks But Would Be Better Without You," and "Darwin Wants You Dead, Punk Rocker." Their shows also featured interactive displays of scat fetishism that involved loading up on X-Lax, shitting on stage, then throwing their excrement at the audience. As the band grew in popularity, they received suicide notes that they would read on stage, mocking the writer and urging them to go ahead and do it. And in time, loyal fans showed up with implements of self-destruction to attempt suicide at the show. And more than once, crumpled bodies were found within falling distance of the mosh pit curled into fetal position from overdose or bleeding profusely from self-inflicted knife wounds, until finally they couldn't find a venue anywhere that would book them because of the negative publicity and the liability issues. As much as the band was about suicide, so too were they serious about heroin. But when the band broke up and other members simply drifted off into the junkie twilight, Jake Lizard got clean, then found religion in Buddhism. Though he remained weird, he developed a meditation practice and developed some internal wisdom and compassion for others. And to atone for his mockery of the suffering of others as a suicide junkie, he became known not just for his art and his parties, but also for talking people down who wanted a permanent exit from this mortal coil. For all of these roles, he was always strapped to a screen. A laptop, his iPad, maybe a mobile, and tonight was no exception. I clicked in his window and typed out a message. "You around?" "Yeah, I'm just leaving for a show in the Mission." Leaving a show in the Mission. What's up?" "I got an issue. A live one. Friend in an Oakland warehouse with a 9mm telling me he wants to die on a Skype call." "New gun?" he said. "Yup, how'd you know?" "Well, that means he bought it for a special occasion. Doesn't mean he'll use it today. Tell him to put the gun down." "Chase, put the gun down," I said into the screen. "No," he said flatly. "I like the gun. And this booze," he said, producing a fifth of Fireballs from somewhere off screen, then taking a generous swallow before resting it near his keyboard. "He's got it in hand," I typed, "with a bottle of Fireball." "Awesome," said Lizard. "Where is he?" "I don't know. West Oakland somewhere. I went there once, years ago. Shitty part of town, you know." "Sure, he's a friend of yours." "What's his number?" I clicked over to Chase's Facebook profile and clicked in the About section. No dice. Who was I kidding? A security paranoid sysadmin sticking his phone number into Facebook? And yet, Gmail. Search screen, Chase, 510. The email was dated 2004, and yet he hadn't left the Bay Area. It was possible he was still good. It was still good. 510-554-1236. "You know, I gotta tell you," Jake said into a window. "Usually I just tell people who are suicidal to go volunteer at a hospice for a year. Cures them. And then I tell them they should maybe just go ahead and kill themselves anyway. So what's his address? I'll mosey over there and call him on the way." "I don't know, yet. Anyway, going there might be dangerous." "Of course it is," said Jake. "But our karma is already intertwined. The only way to accept destiny is to confront it head on. I'll call him first. Meantime, track down someone who knows and find out where he lives." "Huh. Well, maybe there's a way to use IP to GPS locator for that." "Don't make it complicated, egghead. Just find an ex-girlfriend and get me an address. I'll call, but there's no guarantees. He could be one of the legions of people who hate me, who've never met me. I get a lot of that in my day-to-day. Crabs in a barrel, Jake. Everyone hates success. Who says I'm successful? I'm just a public figure. Another bozo on the bus." He signed off. Chase was tapping on his keyboard now with both hands furiously. The gun and the bottle still sat in front of him as he pushed out a missive of some kind to someone, somewhere. With his skills, he could be shutting down a network, moving files from one end of the earth to the other, or he might just be editing one of his social media profiles. Then again, maybe he was engaged in some kind of dominant kinky chat session over on FetLife, creating a playlist on MySpace, doing edits on a long-forgotten account on LiveJournal, or writing bullshit on Facebook, just like the rest of us. I clicked over to his wall. No new posts in a couple of days, but one inbound post from another user, so I clicked her name and looked back into the Skype side of the screen. "So what's going on, man? You feeling a little better?" "Just finishing up a few things before I go," he said, picking up the gun and pointing it towards the screen again. "Chase, look, we've all been dumped. And we've all had drinking problems. We've all been out of work. Why not put the gun away and get up tomorrow and go to a meeting? I'll call around and find you a therapist to talk to. Maybe you can go check yourself in for a couple of days. Meetings? Fucking AA? Right. Oh, there's no God. God is dead, asshole. You know it too. When was the last time you did a decent 4-step? Or even a first step? I chugged down the rest of my beer and grabbed another. Well, it's been a while, I said. Years. So fuck AA. Maybe you need a therapist. I need a job, he said. In front of me was the profile of a stunningly beautiful woman whose occupation said therapist and whose schooling said the California Institute of Integral Studies. I bounced back to her post on Chase's wall. It suggested a relationship that went beyond therapeutic, but it was dated over 6 weeks before. I bounced back over to her wall and clicked on her messages tab. The green light was there. Bingo. She was online too. Hey, who isn't? Her name was Cassandra. Hi, Cassandra, I typed into the box. We don't know each other, but we have a friend in common, Chase. I'm in Thailand, and he and I are on a Skype call. He's in his warehouse with a gun threatening to kill himself. Are you available at the moment? What about contract work? I said to the screen. You used to do that. Nothing out there? Chase flinched as if I spat at him, and then he choked out a bitter laugh. Sure, he said evenly, staring at the screen. Contracts. Little old me versus some business with some hot shit law firm on retainer, over-delivering and never getting paid on time, strung along like I can handle 90-day nets like some big-shot consulting firm. Yeah, that's a fucking dead end, like this room I live in, or this rotten world I'm about to leave. He paused and took a slug from the bottle, then pointed the gun off-screen and fired. Blam! I jumped back. It was a lot louder than I expected, and I felt a tingle over me. His warehouse. Neighbors? West Oakland. Would anyone care? The last time I dealt with that bullshit, he said, lurching into the screen with the gun clenched in both hands. I had this gun in my car. It took everything I had not to go shoot up the fucking place when they wouldn't cut me a check. Random shootings. There's nothing random about people like me shooting up a shopping mall or a school full of children. It's fucking karma. Par for the fucking course in this shit-for-brains country. No healthcare, no unions, no fucking gun control. What do they expect? On the other side of the world, the sudden jangle of the stereo love ringtone popped from a nearby phone. Chase's phone. He seemed startled, as if no one had called him in a while, and he got up and left the frame of the screen. Over on Facebook, I noticed a reply from Cassandra. OMG, what's happening? He just shot the gun in his warehouse. We need his address. Where is he? 2012 Peralta Street. Should I call him? He may be on the phone with a friend of mine in San Francisco or maybe East Bay by now. Just stay here and we'll keep you posted. I popped open Gmail chat and typed away in Jake's window. Hey, you may be talking to me, but he just popped off a round in his apartment. He's located at 2012 Peralta. Silence. Nothing from the chat window. But Chase lurched back into frame with his mobile against his ear with his left hand, the gun in his right. Really? He told you to call me? Wait, he told you to call me? So maybe they knew each other. Or maybe it was just that Chase knew about Jake because he was a legendary type in both the city and on the playa. Neither place was very big, and the playa especially, particularly if you spent a lot of time out there. Particularly if you treat it like a second home, that wasteland of alkali soil. A place to play in a world increasingly gentrified and impossible to live in for all but the best educated and most well-heeled. Anybody complaining about the cost of a Burning Man ticket wasn't someone used to paying a Bay Area rent. And if they couldn't appreciate the freedom that existed out there, they could go to Coachella instead, or Lollapalooza. Observe your heroes up on the stage, or smash the fourth wall and participate. Blast your television with a shotgun and never look back. Kill your parents and hit the road. If it doesn't appeal to be part of the action, stay home. Or go be a fan rather than a performer and live an unsatisfied life wishing on dreams you were never bold enough to make real. The playa was Chase's world. Mine too for a while before I split the country. Jake Lizard was practically born out there. He talked down his first suicide there. A girl with a gun in the middle of an art performance project that was supposed to be a live playa suicide. But Jake got wind of the situation before it happened and showed up at the event, talking her down with a bullhorn and a promise of a job at his bar in SF if she'd just put down the gun. That, too, was an art project he'd written to me, I think that time within Facebook Messenger. Hearing about someone needing that kind of help implies a karmic entwining that you just can't walk away from. The rest of the exercise, it's all just show. Chase put the phone to his chest and turned into the screen, glaring at me across the ether in a way that felt like he was literally inches from my face. "I'll deal with you later," he snarled. Obviously drunk, snapped off the power on his monitor and his screen faded to black. But he didn't drop the call, and I sat there, pushing mute on iTunes, straining to hear what was happening. "Yeah," I heard him say. "Yeah. 2012 Peralta. Oh, there? You're 2 blocks away. Come on by. Yeah, the lock's broken on the gate and the door's unlocked. I'll be here." The rain was picking up around my cove, and I could hear the waves crashing finally after nearly an hour of concentrating on Chase on my screen. Though I thought I could hear him breathing, it was mostly drowned out by the sound of the rain on the roof. And then I heard the furious pounding of his fingers on the keyboard, writing to whom or saying what I didn't know. "Chase just wrote to me," said the girl in the window, Cassandra from CIIS. "You sent Jake Lizard over to talk to him?" Leaning into the computer, I began to tap a reply, but heard a door fly open. "Jesus Christ! It's you?" I heard a voice cry out, but I couldn't recognize it as either of them. Stop and think. I didn't really know either of them anymore. Jake I only knew online, had only heard his voice on stages. We really only talked through the machine. Blam! 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 "Jake slept with Kristen," said Cassandra in a window. "That's how we met before I left Chase for him too." I heard a laugh that I knew belonged to Chase, and yet by now I knew that there wasn't going to be any life-saving that was going to happen tonight. His monitor came into shape and he sat in front of me, grinning happily. "The interconnectedness of all things," he said, smiling. "LSD, Buddha, and the internet. Who knew you were the perfect person to call?" He put the gun to his head and I felt my eyes slam shut. Blam! I heard a heavy thud on the floor. By the time I opened my eyes, there was no one there to see anymore. And I shut my monitor off and listened to the rain. I didn't feel like a pirate anymore as I opened another beer. I just felt like a castaway, waiting out the storm.